This is the Carl DeMaio Show. We're giving you the story behind the story, and we're leading the fight to take back our state for a better California. On this episode, I want to talk about the gas and car tax hikes. That's right. You know, this is an issue near and dear to my heart. I've been fighting the gas tax and the car tax hikes for now 2.5 years. And we are not done with our fight. Even though the politicians stole an election in 2018 and stopped our gas tax repeal through dirty tricks, we are not giving up, and we've got a plan on how we're going to fight back and repeal the gas tax and the car tax. But let me start out first by setting the stage. All of us want well-maintained roads, okay? We would like to actually add lanes to our roads so that we can reduce congestion. But that's not how your gas tax, that's not how your car tax, is being, spent. The money, the funds from the car tax and the gas tax are being diverted. You can see this because you can look at the roads and how crappy they are. You can also see it by just simply tracking the fund balances and the transfers in the gas tax and the car tax funds held by the state of California. Now, you might say, well, Carl, they promised it would go to the roads. Nope. You got duped. Yep, you got duped. I got a bridge to sell you, a poorly maintained California bridge, by the way. The politicians created a, quote, lockbox that has so many holes in it, it's like Swiss cheese. It's like one of those carnival lock boxes where the lady falls from the false bottom underneath before she gets cut. The money is earmarked for, quote, transportation, not roads. And they define transportation as anything. They define it as bike lanes, walking, buses, government bureaucrats, training government employees at the UC and the CSU system, union payments for training in the union hall. Even farm programs are funded out of the gas tax. So when you take a look at where the money actually goes, roads are not guaranteed even a penny. Plus, during economic downturns, the governor has the authority to declare an emergency and transfer all the money to cover the general fund deficit of the state. So no lockbox. It's just a tax increase. You also know that they don't like roads because the politicians are always running around screaming and yelling about climate change and how the world's going to end in 12 years. And that's why you need to be sitting in the smelly bus with the homeless person and the government bureaucrat. That's why they want bus and transit, is because government-run transportation requires that you hire government employees to run the transportation, to drive the bus, to conduct the trolley. And so they're looking at it as an employment program for government workers who then turn around and pay government union dues, who then line the pockets of the politicians who raised your gas tax. See how this all comes back to the money? And if you follow it, you see the real motive. We have the worst roads in the country by any measure. The Reason Foundation says we're actually 48 out of 50, but I still think that we are 50 out of 50. But we got the highest gas tax in the country. We pay the most, but we get the worst. And on top of the gas tax, we have something called cap and trade, which is an additional assessment to each gallon of gas. So the net result is about $1.25 per gallon of gas extra in cost in California. Self-inflicted higher cost of living. That's not even counting the car tax, which you have to pay for vehicle registration. Now, the cost of living in California is high. It's high on a number of levels: taxes, mandates, fees, the failure of government to provide for adequate housing supply. The list goes on and on. But the reason why I focus on the gas tax and the car tax as our first area of focus in fighting back against the cost of living crisis in our state is that it's the thing that touches the taxpayer and the voter and the citizen the most. It's most noticeable. Here's why. You fill up your gas tank and you watch the numbers adding up. You're like, oh, wow, $80 to fill up my tank? Boy, it's getting expensive. You see it every week. And so it's on your mind. $4, $5 a gallon gas. You see the signs as you drive. I think that this is one of the most important taxes for Republicans to fight because it really is top of mind, unlike any other tax. And then the car tax is very unique in that, unlike your income taxes that get taken out of your paycheck automatically, the car tax, every citizen has to actually sit down and write a check for the car tax. And so by writing that check, it makes an impression on you. Wow, this is expensive. Wow, the state of California is charging me too much. So that's why I continue to say to Republicans, you need to keep your focus on repealing the car tax and the gas tax in California, because if you can't even do that, we got ourselves problems. Now, we successfully recalled the state Senator Josh Newman, the guy who cast the deciding vote for the car tax and the gas tax increase in 2018 over this issue. So I know that this issue can be used to clobber and defeat Democrats running for office. But it also eventually will get repealed by the voters because we are winning the issue with the voters. When we filed our ballot measure to repeal the gas tax, it was only 3 sentences long. We were able to collect signatures at a bargain basement price in record time. The politicians saw the polling. 2/3, 3/4 of Californians were ready to vote yes on the gas tax repeal, but the politicians decided, let's just fool the voters. Let's dupe them. Let's confuse them. Let's change the title on the gas tax repeal and eliminate the words gas tax repeal. Now, mind you, our initiative was only 3 sentences long. We didn't need a title and summary. Just print the damn text of the initiative itself, and the voters will know what they're voting on. But that's not what the politicians did. They wanted to lie and deceive the voters, and the media let them get by with it. There was no transparency. There was no honesty. It was an ill-gotten win by defeating Prop 6. We haven't given it up because we intend to make the gas tax and the car tax a signature issue in the 2020 campaign, reminding voters why the cost of living is so high and reminding them who did it to them, the Democrats in the Assembly, in the state Senate, the Democrats in the Congress, and you should vote against those people who are gouging you at the pump. If Republicans were smart, they would run on this issue. But we also need to get things done, and that's why I am going to be moving forward with another round of our gas tax repeal initiative. Coming up, I'm going to explain how we're going to do it. But first, these messages.
Carl DeMaio here. From rating our road improvement funds for bus and bike lanes to gas taxes and congestion taxes, politicians keep making it harder to drive. Traffic will only get worse unless we demand change. Join me, Carl DeMaio, by signing the petition at fixsandiegoroads.org.
Carl DeMaio thinks it's time to clean up the mess in Congress and take a new approach to solving problems. That's why Carl DeMaio is proposing the Fix Congress First plan. Make Congress live under the same laws the rest of us do. No special exemptions. Eliminate lavish congressional pensions and other perks. Force Congress to open up its own books and records to public review. Make Congress read the bills first before they vote on them. No budget, no pay. Permanently take away Congress's pay for every day the budget is late. If we want better results from Washington, we need to start by fixing Congress first. That's why it's time to help Carl DeMaio get his Fix Congress First plan enacted. Sign Carl's petition and help fix Congress first.
You're listening to the Carl DeMaio Show. We're talking about the gas tax repeal, the car tax repeal, and what we're planning to do to make sure we can still regroup and get this important issue resolved. So in 2018, the politicians stole the election by changing the title on the gas tax repeal at the last minute, eliminating the term gas tax repeal and saying eliminates road repairs and transportation projects. Lie, complete lie. But it shows the manipulation, deception, thievery of our politicians in California. So what do? we have to fix that problem, because now we're not just fighting to repeal the gas tax and the car tax. We're fighting to preserve the citizens' initiative rights in California. Since 1913, we've had in California the right of referenda, the right of initiative, ballot measures, the right of recall against government officials. And this is the only last check we have in a supermajority state, is when the citizens rise up and say, we're going to stop this bill. We're going to stop this law. We're going to kick this politician out of office. If the politicians are able to lie to us on the ballot, we've lost our final check in California on the abuse of power. We cannot let that happen. And so we need to file an initiative, another initiative to fix the initiative process, that's called Honesty and Transparency in Balloting. Everyone in California hates getting the ballot book because it's so confusing and so technical and all the jargon. You feel like you have to be a lawyer and an accountant to figure out what the hell is going on. We need to file an initiative to fix that. The first part of the initiative would say that any citizens' initiative would retain the citizens' initiative title, and that no politician may modify citizen initiative titles, that it must be the original title given by the citizen initiative proponent, as well as the summary would be done by a nonpartisan legislative analyst office official. The LAO office is nonpartisan. It would also be subject to court review, judicial review. So we have honest titles and summaries. That's step one. Take it out of the hands of the politicians. No more manipulation, no more changes. Honest titles and summaries on citizen initiatives. Number two, we would require that any initiative that is placed on the ballot by politicians or others that increases a tax or a fee on any individual must have a title that starts with the term tax increase. Oh yeah, let's make those tax increases a little bit more noticeable on the ballot. Number three, our initiative would say that any proponent of a citizen's initiative that qualified for the 2018 election or later, that any proponent that feels like their title and summary was prejudicial or biased or confusing, that individual may petition the court to place their initiative back on the ballot at the next available election. In other words, we will be able to get our gas tax repeal back on the ballot. Now, in order to pass this initiative, we need to get a campaign together. We need to qualify the initiative. We need to collect signatures. We need to get it passed. I believe we will get the support of some of the editorial boards. I believe that the Republican Party needs to learn its lesson from the failure of the gas tax repeal and finally pull its head out of its you-know-what and actually support a citizens' rebellion for once. Oh yeah, I'm pretty ticked. But there's a new regime there, and I think that we'll be able to work very effectively with them. But we need to make the gas tax repeal and the honest and transparent budgeting initiative the centerpiece of our election in 2020. This has to be the rallying call for all center-right voters and center-right candidates in the state of California. We can do this, and it can be a powerful relief to California middle-class families. It can be, more importantly, a powerful reform, a progressive reform, some might say, to really have a check on the unbridled power of the Democrat supermajority in Sacramento if we have our rights back to do citizens' initiatives with fair titles. And it also is a curb on tax increase measures being placed on the ballot with confusing and deceptive titles. It's important. I think it's one of the most important reforms since Prop 13, frankly, and that needs to be our centerpiece. So that's what I plan to be working on as it relates to the gas tax repeal and, our larger effort to roll back tax increases or fight tax increases in California. We're going to have a lot of work to do to collect the signatures and to raise the money, but I think we can make this like a combination approach with candidates for office running on this and using this, going door to door, collecting signatures, getting volunteers involved. This really can be a unifying thing for the Republican Party, something constructive for them to work on, just like we saw with the gas tax repeal. Now, we also need to get our local elected officials who get the gas tax monies we need to get them to put 100% of the gas tax into roads. That's something that we ought to be doing just as a basic starting point for all of our local elected officials, city council, mayor, county board, etc. Republicans ought to be the infrastructure party. As a member of Congress, I plan to address this issue in a creative way. I'm going to introduce a bill that will state that the federal gas tax, because there is a federal gas tax that's applied on top of the state gas tax, that the federal gas tax, that 100% of it shall go to road projects. Right now, the money goes anywhere the state and local government wants to put the gas tax money. I think 100% of the federal gas tax ought to go to road projects, period. And that we would define that as an actual project, not the overhead, staffing and bureaucracy, but actually concrete and asphalt. So I'm going to introduce a bill saying 100% of the gas tax at the federal level may only be spent by a state or local agency on a capital improvement project defined as physical infrastructure being created with asphalt or concrete. Second, my law would also require that when they award contracts for the road projects, that they have to use open competitive bidding, fair and open competition. No union-only project labor agreement would be allowed. Has to be open to all construction companies, both union and non-union. Those are two provisions in federal law that as a member of Congress, your next member of Congress from the state of California, that I can lead the fight on in Washington. On top of the fight we're going to lead to repeal the gas tax, roll it back, the car tax at the state of California, and then on top of the emphasis that I think all Republican candidates should have for basic infrastructure investment, that 100% of the gas tax or local infrastructure funds should go into infrastructure. Well, you might say, well, Carl, what about transit? Okay, what about transit? We already subsidize in San Diego County 76% of every transit rider's fare. Yeah. You want us to bleed a little bit more? We're already doing our fair share for subsidizing transit. The reality is transit ridership is down across the country because people are finding that technology is opening up more efficient, more convenient, faster, and cheaper ways of getting around, like Uber and Lyft, rideshare. And so I don't think transit's the end-all be-all. I think it can work in some cases. But we ought to be market-based, consumer-driven with how we invest our dollars in transportation alternatives. We can't just say, well, we like transit because it fits our liberal philosophy. We don't like the car because it's climate change oriented. No, it's called transportation. Meet the needs of the commuters. And if they're using roads, then you better be able to provide and maintain the road system that they need. I believe that Republicans don't spend enough time talking about transportation and infrastructure, and I'm going to be one of the loudest voices on this issue in the coming years. You can get more information, by the way, on the gas tax repeal campaign at gastaxrepeal.org or reformcalifornia.org, or check out my infrastructure plan at carldemaio.com. That does it for this episode of the Carl DeMaio Show. Share our page for bettercalifornia.com. Get people to get on-demand episodes or subscribe for the podcast, The Carl DeMaio Show, on their favorite podcast app like Spotify or iTunes or the iHeartRadio app. We'll pick it up next time on The Carl DeMaio Show. This podcast was paid for by Carl DeMaio for Congress. I'm Carl DeMaio, and I proved this message.